I started working in television when I was 16 years old. I started working for a teen magazine show called Scratch, and when I was 18, I got a job working for Channel 1 News, which was a news show seen in middle schools and high schools across the country. And growing up, I had this desire to be on TV because I didn't have a lot of money. My family didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I thought if I could get on TV, maybe I could one day have a better life. But then when I started working for Channel 1, it was a show that just started sending me all over the world to report stories. And because it was seen by middle school and high school students, they wanted young reporters to front the show. So Anderson Cooper and I were among the 8 correspondents who reported for Channel 1. And reporting overseas just opened my eyes so profoundly, and those experiences in Afghanistan when I was 21 years old, in Iran when I was 22 years old, in Colombia, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, in Kazakhstan, in my 20s, they propelled me to want to tell stories because I came back to America every time, and nobody in my world had any idea that these rich, compelling, riveting and fascinating stories existed in the world. And I think that I found my calling. In fact, I'm certain I found my calling really early on, and it was through that opportunity to travel and be immersed in different worlds and different cultures that really fueled that desire to tell stories and become a journalist. I've always chosen somewhat of an unconventional path in what I do, and I think that aspiring journalists need to start thinking about ways to do that. You know, the traditional route to become a broadcast or even print journalist is changing dramatically, and we as journalists have to be able to adapt to those changes. And while there is a lot of fear because there's so much insecurity in the business these days, there are actually, I think, more opportunities than there ever have been before for journalists. If you are a good writer, if you are a good storyteller, if you have access to great stories, there's a very good chance you can have your work seen or read. You might not be able to make a ton of money from it. You might not be able to find the most stable career. But if you're a good storyteller, you will have your work seen. And so I would encourage people, if they're studying journalism, to also study something else. Study pre-med, or study economics, or political science, or study Chinese history, or the Arab world. Because the best journalists these days, or the journalists who are becoming the most successful, let's put it that way, are journalists who have kind of found a little niche for themselves. Sanjay Gupta, for example, has never had any background in journalism. He is a bona fide surgeon, but because of his background and his ability to write and tell stories, he's been able to really capitalize on the whole sort of medical field and industry and any kind of medical stories, but also he's been able to adapt, and he can report on anything. And he brings to the table something really unique and interesting. I always tell aspiring journalists that if your desire is to become rich and famous, this is the wrong profession for you. But if you truly are someone who likes to be a sponge and just absorb information about so many different kinds of things, there's no better job in the world than being a journalist.